Welcome to the Uncharted podcast. I am your host, Inés Franklin. My hope for you today is that we discover faith beyond the boundaries. Uncharted is intended to be a safe place for you to listen, learn, and challenge yourself along your journey of faith. May grace and peace be with you today. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Uncharted with Inés Franklin, where we are rediscovering faith beyond the boundaries. And today I get to introduce you to a dear, dear friend that I've known for so many years. His name is Jordan Durso. And we're going to see a testimony of what an adventure it is to follow Jesus. There's so many things that we covered on this podcast. Today, we covered the wilderness. We talked about the importance of community. We talked about the hearing God's voice, or when do we act? When do we just sit still? How do others come into the picture? So many things. But I want to tell you a little bit about Jordan before we get started, so you know who he is. So again, his name is Jordan Durso. He is from New York. And for years, he was the pastor in Peru. And he was a part of the executive committee of the Camino, Vida church there. He was a missionary. And we got to meet him when he was doing that job. And we delivered wheelchairs, participated in medical clinics all over Peru with Jordan, doing incredible ministry work. And he was doing so much more than what we got to experience when we met him. But that's what he did for over 10 years. And then he ended up coming back to New York, and he shares that in the podcast. And when he was in New York, he is now the executive director at the Legacy Center Community Development Corporation. And he is the associate pastor at Saint Church. And he works tirelessly. I mean, this guy has a massive amount of energy, but he doesn't stop because he loves to help people in their struggle. And all the things that he does are intended to lift up the needs of those who are in desperate need for support. And so you want to get to meet him. And he is incredibly a passionate Bible teacher. So there's a bit of preaching going on in this podcast, but good stuff. So I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope it blesses you. And I do hope that you will share it with others. And don't forget that we love to hear from you. So if you have any comments, please email us at hello@inesfranklin.com. And you can also subscribe on our website so that these podcasts will come to you directly to your email box the minute that they are published. So you can do that at inesfranklin.com. But let's listen into our conversation with Jordan. It starts out with a bang, so you may want to lower your volume, but let's go. I am so excited for you to meet my friend. Jordan! Oh, you guys, I am so excited to introduce you to my dear friend, Jordan Durso. We go way back, Jordan. Way back to those years of going to Peru and taking so many people on trips and just having a blast and a massive adventure. And I am thrilled that you're here with Kayleigh and I. Kayleigh went on many of those trips herself. So,
yes,
I'm just excited for you all to meet my friend Jordan and hear about his journey of faith. He has an incredible story and quite a journey with God. And Jordan, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
So fun.
Yeah.
I love
Mom,
it.
I feel like you have to
mhm.
explain why these Peru trips. Like, how did you end up in the Peru trip? And then we can
Yeah.
find out how Jordan did.
Yeah.
Yes. So we started getting involved with an organization called the Free Wheelchair Mission. And they send wheelchairs all over the world to people who cannot afford to get a wheelchair. And so they were delivering wheelchairs all over. And one of the places was Peru. And they were in partnership with a church there called Camino de Vida. Pastor Robert, still there in Lima after many, many years of being a missionary. I think he's now Peruvian officially.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Jordan worked with Pastor Berenger, and he became our host. So when we came to experience the process of delivering wheelchairs, which they were doing all the time, but we got to experience it from time to time. That's how we met Jordan. And we got to go on many, many trips where we brought people from California to Peru and have them experience the incredible gift of giving people the gift of mobility. And so, but those trips were not only amazing because you got to see people receive wheelchair, but also they were a lot of fun. They were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and it's because you made it fun, Jordan. You
Thanks.
made it so much fun. So
I'm a fun
good.
guy.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so now we
And
know
humble too.
how. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
now
all
we
I
know
got,
how
though. It's
we.
fun.
Yeah. Oh, but
Yeah.
nah, that's not true. That's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
true. But now that we know that how we ended up in Peru, which, mom went on a fair bit more trips than I ever did, but I got to go on one at least every year, which was such a blessing. Jordan, how did you end up in Peru? Because you were not born and raised in Peru.
Yeah. No. Born and raised here in New York, and Italian parents, and but pastor's kid, right? So I grew up a pastor's kid. My dad became the pastor of our church when I was 6 years old, and he was actually on the board. It's funny, like whenever anybody asks me how did I get um, involved in this kind of life and do what I do, it's always starts with, well, my dad. And I actually love that. I actually pray, I have three daughters, 22, 19, and 17. I want to light myself on fire. But um, I pray to God that when someone asks them why they are the way they are, they respond with a, well, my dad, that it always comes back to, hey, this is how I led the home and this is what I put out as an example. And so my dad was on the board of several different orphanages, one in Haiti. He would do stuff in Guatemala. And ever since I'm 6, 7 years old, I would be like, Dad, take me on these trips. And I just grew up loving traveling overseas and helping people, and we'd feed children and we'd feed people on the street, and we do this kind of street ministry, and I just fell in love with it. And so, man, when I was 18 and kind of just gave my life really to the Lord, through high school you kind of veer off, but I gave my life back to the Lord. And I don't know what it was. I think I was actually 17 at this point. I woke up one morning and said, Dad, do you know anybody in Peru? Don't know why, never heard of Peru before, had no idea where it was on the map. I just said, do you know anybody in Peru? Maybe it was, maybe I had, I don't know what it was. And he said, yeah, actually our church connections, we have a church down there and this is the pastor. And I said, Pop, can I just go visit? I don't know what it is, but I just got to go visit. And so I went down, spent the summer down there, and fell in love. Fell in
Mm.
love, and just every year for the next 2, 3 years, would bring a team down. I'm 17, 18 at this point, 19. And when I hit 20, I said, this is my life. I want to go live in Peru. And so I got married at 20 and moved to Peru. And all my three daughters were born there. And we just started serving. And I mean, I'm sure I'm going into more questions, but like the serving kind of when it was whatever needed to be done. I mean, I went from choir member, which I can't sing, to usher, to kids ministry, to they kicked me out of the women's ministry. Like I tried everything. I was like just trying to serve wherever I could. And then it bled into this just humanitarian way to evangelize and not only tell people that Jesus loves them, but show them that Jesus loves them. And it went into the medical clinics and it went into all these different things. And hence the wheelchair distributions with Free Wheelchair Mission and Mariners Church, hence the Franklins coming down and us meeting and becoming best friends instantly and
Forever.
forever. And so it just kind of like snowballed. And it was we talk about journeys. It was such a great journey. And when I look back, I go, wow, that's how it all happened. But in it, you didn't even see it happening. Like it was just,
Mm.
I don't know what it was. Almost, I can't even explain it. It just rolled into each other, and it was kind of not always seamless, but it just flowed. And there were moments I was just like, I don't even know what's happening right now, but it's happening, and I'm kind of rolling with it. And I look back, and I'm like, man, that was a fantastic decade of my life, and I wouldn't change a thing.
I
I'd
love that.
change a few
Now,
things. I'd change a few things, but yeah.
yeah, I'm thinking. So, Jordan, okay, for our listeners, since part of our podcast is about the journey of faith, and we talk about, how it begins, how it goes in the middle of it, and where we think it's going. And so, do you even remember when you became a Christ follower? I mean, is there a memory
Yeah.
for you? Or
Oh,
okay,
100%. Yeah. It was my 17th birthday, July 7th, 19, I don't know what year it was, but 17th birthday. I want to say it was 1996 or seven. And I was in my bedroom, and I had gotten in trouble doing some stuff. And I really felt it wasn't an audible voice, but I really felt like God talking to me saying, um, if you want to keep going down this path, it's not going to go well for you. But if you go down this path, I've got some really amazing stuff for you. And
Mm.
I felt like it was this Matrix moment, red pill. I don't even know the color, but this like choose door A, door B kind of thing. And he literally told me what was on the other side. Like there was awesomeness on this side and just really bad stuff on this side. And this side looked a little bit more fun, but there was some bad stuff heading down that way. And I had gotten involved in some stuff with my one of my cousins with some gang stuff and some stuff like that. But uh, it was such an easy decision. Also, how I grew up and my parents and stuff. And I just said, and it was funny because my older brother who was in from college was sleeping in the bed next to me. And I looked at him because I wanted to be cool in front of him. But I just said, you know what? That's it. I choose door God. And I'm going all in. And the next morning I told my brother, I said, hey, I gave my life to Jesus. I can't do A, B, and C with you anymore. And literally, so that was July 7th when I gave my heart to the Lord. I told him July 8th, and then July 9th in our prayer meeting of our church, I told him to come with me. And then he winds up getting saved that night.
Oh,
So
Oh,
really cool moment for my parents who had been
yes.
praying nonstop for their kids. Within 2 days, they
Boom,
got their
boom.
two oldest boys. Boom, boom. So yeah, very cool moment.
I love
And
that.
never looked
So,
back.
so it sounds like that timing is similar to the timing of, "Hey, Dad, I want to go to Peru."
It was
Was
right.
that
It
all?
was like, oh, maybe a week later that I was like,
Uh,
I know I'm called for to serve. I didn't know how it was going to look. I didn't know really where it was, but I knew this calling of serving was just on my life, and traveling and preaching the gospel. And I was just like, let's go all in. It was like a major shift, a major change in my life. Uh, I'm a pastor, so I always get preachy, but like, so stop me if I'm getting too preachy. But like, you look at all the big moments in some of the big Bible characters' lives, and it was this like divine revelation of who God was, which then translated to this divine revelation of who they were and their calling on their life. And everything changes. And you go from Abram to Abraham, Sarah to Sarah, Jacob to Israel, Simon to Peter, Saul to Paul. Like everything changes, including their names. And it's
mm,
like this major shift of this is who God is, and this is also who I am. And now I've
mhm.
called you to do this. And it's like nothing else matters. Nothing in the past, nothing yesterday matters, nothing this morning mattered. God's called me for this. Let's go. And it's just this, yeah, this focus.
I love that. So, okay, for the people who are listening who assume that a pastor's kid is born a Christian, you went from being born to 17, a pastor's kid. And, because, yeah, there's some assumptions that people make about children of pastors.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about that for a minute? Because the journey of faith begins well before you have that moment, right? There's a lot that happens before. And for you, it's different than what people would expect.
Yeah. I mean, well, actually, growing up a pastor's kids and knowing a lot of pastor's kids, I feel like my journey is very similar, because if, we mentioned Pastor Robert, and he would always say, God doesn't have any grandkids; He has sons and daughters. And so my faith isn't based on my parents' faith. I have to have my own faith. And so I think a lot of us as pastors' kids, we grow up and we're like, you know, this is my parents' thing. This is what they wanted to do. And so we almost take a detour, a hard detour to experience some stuff for ourselves. And it's sad because we shouldn't have to. I mean, um, but yeah, I mean, I went off. I did my thing. I joined that whole New York City gang, doing graffiti, doing all that stuff, selling drugs, kind of trying to dabble in all these little things to figure out what I really believed and what I needed. And I thank God I didn't go too far. I mean, I know a lot of people that went a lot farther than I did. Um, and then then that comes to this realization, oh my goodness, like I'm nothing without God. I need a savior. Um, and so that journey of faith starts there. And then, when we talk journey of faith, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a bunch more in a bit, but when I look at that journey of faith, especially being a missionary and leaving your home and going to a different country, that journey of faith like started at that one seed where I gave my life to Jesus. But there's this journey of faith that I feel like that was the easy part. That giving my
Yeah.
life to Jesus was the easy part. It was that journey of faith of trusting him for what's next.
Yeah.
Where's the next dollar coming from, or how are we going to do these works? And I will say, stop me if I'm talking too much, but I will say, Franklin's, you and Jim, you guys were a big part of my journey of faith, because it was really when my ministry started taking off and I was really dependent on, man, God put some big visions in my heart to start doing like these nationwide medical campaigns and all these different things. And I won't say who, but I have some people that are very close that said, Jordan, you're crazy. You're only 24 years old at the time, or 25 years old at the time. And, relax. Like, you're talking big, and God used you and Jim to, one of my biggest generous blessings were from you guys to then kind of confirm some of the visions that God was giving me, to say, man, if God's called me to do this and I step out, he's going to supply, he's going to use people. Um,
Mm.
so anyway, I wanted to, we could talk about that later, but I just wanted to give honor where honor is due. You guys were such a massive part of my journey of faith and taking it to the next level and believing God. Man, I don't got to worry about, if you told me to do it, I'm stepping out, and you're going to provide a way, and you're going to put people in my path. As far as from New York, from California down to Peru, you're going to make those divine intersection and join us. And then resources are going to flow, and God's going to do what he wants to do. And I just say
Amen.
yes. So
Yeah. Well, and I think it's so it can feel so vague to a new believer or someone who's like learning along their journey of faith, to think that, if God has a calling on our lives, if God calls us to do something, he will make it happen. No person, no human experience, no thing can stop us from what God has for us, but it can feel so big and so vague in that moment of just like nothing, like no person. I often feel sometimes like, oh, yeah, if it was just me and God, I fully trust it's going to happen. But when a person steps in the middle of it, then all of a sudden I'm like, well, and so it's just this constant reminder of, that's right. It doesn't matter the person. We are all humans. Everything here is under his domain and his sovereignty. And so therefore, our callings will happen no matter what. I have a question for you, Jordan. So you had this moment, you're 17, you give your life to Christ, and that was the easy part. And I wonder too, like it was the easy part because you had to learn how to trust him. But do you ever feel like there was moments along your journey of faith where you feel like then it was almost like a wilderness season or a quiet season where you like felt challenged, or you feel like, is this still where you're calling me to be?
yes, I have had a lot of those. And as lonely as those moments are, they've been really incredible moments. Not during, obviously not during, right? I've been in moments where I feel like, I don't know if you go to the beach and a wave hits you and you're tumbling underneath that wave, and you finally get your head above water, gasping for air. Another wave hits you, and you're and you find it's like, and you feel like you can't get out of this wave after wave, or you feel like you're fighting, and you just feel like you can't even clench your fist anymore. You got no more strength left to even throw another punch. Um, you know. You both know my story, being a missionary. I mean, one, there's moments where you're like, all right, God, I feel like you've called me to do this and the resources aren't there and I don't know what to do. Other moments, and I have no problem talking about this. I spent 10 years in Peru, and I might still be in Peru to this day, but my marriage fell apart. And here I am serving God, pastor's kid, gave my life to Jesus at 17, doing all this, what I thought was incredible ministry around the world. And I'm doing all this stuff for Jesus. And then my marriage falls apart. And I'm like, wait. This isn't
Yeah.
supposed to happen to me. Like, what's going on here? And um, yeah, you're in those moments that you're just like, this doesn't make sense. This isn't fair. And you start to question God. I know for myself, I didn't question his existence. I questioned his involvement. I didn't
Mm.
question if he could. I questioned why he didn't. And I was
Yeah.
screaming, God, where are you? Why are you not doing something? I'm praying. I've got friends around the world praying for this situation. Franklin's, you were part of that
Yes.
too. You flew
Yes.
down to Peru to be with us, and it didn't work out in the end. And you're still, I mean, this is 13 years ago now, and I'm still like, how did this happen? This wasn't supposed to happen to me. This isn't fair. I feel like I got robbed. I
Mm.
got like the wind got knocked out of me, and yeah, and you're just like, and there's I started during these moments. There was this verse. You talk about Job, and you talk about, it's easy to know what to do when God's speaking to you. What do you do when
Yeah.
God's silent? Like,
Yes.
when heaven's silent, what do you do? What
Yeah.
you're like looking around, you're searching for answers and you're not getting them. And one of my favorite books in the Bible is Habakkuk, and there's only 3 chapters, and it's literally a conversation between this guy Habakkuk and his God, and it goes from this bad moment of, God, where are you? And all this destruction's happening around me, and I don't get it. I don't understand. And then God speaks, and then Habakkuk speaks, and then God speaks, and then finally, like at the end, and I actually started writing this verse everywhere, and it became. We could talk about. I started doing art, and it became part of my art pieces, and it's pretty much like the verse goes. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there's the olive crop fails, and there's no grapes on the vines, and the fields produce no food, and there's no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls. Like, it pretty much depicts the worst possible situation, especially Israel being this agricultural community. Nothing else could go wrong. I mean, this is affecting your finances, your relationships, socially, emotionally, like mental, everything couldn't be worse. And then he hits this yet. It's like this big breath. Yet I will rejoice in God, my Savior. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer, and he puts me on the mountaintops. And for me, that verse changed everything, because you read the end of Habakkuk, nothing changed. His
Yeah.
situation never changes. His attitude changed. His perspective changed. I have 3 daughters. Like I said, we go to the mall a lot, and you ever get lost in a mall, and all you see is Forever 21 and, I don't know, some kiosk, and you want to get to Annie Ann's, like, you want the pretzel. What do you got to
Yes.
do?
So
What do you got to
good.
do? You got to go to the mall directory. What does it do? It gives you this bird's eye view of the mall, of the whole situation, to say, okay, I'm here. I want to be here. So here's my location. This is my destination. Now I have direction on how to get there. But so many times when we're lost in the mall or lost in a storm, like, we don't know where we are. We don't know where we're going. We have no direction on how to get there. And we need this bird's eye view, this God's eye view
Mhm.
of, this is the whole situation. Because when we're in the storm, we don't see the whole situation. But when we get above the situation, we go, oh, look, that's where I am. That's where God's taken me. I didn't realize this in the moment when the wind was whipping me in the face and the water was splashing me. Now I realized God was in my boat the whole time, and I realized God was with me the whole time, and he was working things out for my good that I didn't realize in the moment. I didn't realize because I couldn't really see it. I was blinded by the situation. But man, as I get above the situation and I get this God's eye view, oh, now I can see on where I was or where I am and where I want to be and where I'm going. And now I have direction on how to get there. And I tell you, for me, I've been through so many of those situations. And since my divorce, uh, there's all those moments of sadness and hurt and rejection. And it's almost like a death.
Yeah.
And we all know this, right? Um, and it's this getting back to God and looking through God's eyes and making sure my eyes are focused on him to make sure that I can walk on water, that I can get to the other side, that I can keep going and get where he wants me to be and have the strength to do it. Like, I love this, where it talks about in his presence, there's fullness of joy, right? When you're sad, when you're depressed, when you're anxious, you get in his presence, you put the music on, you get in his word. In his presence, there's fullness of joy. And the joy of the Lord is my strength. And so when I
Mhm.
feel depressed, when I feel weak, the best place to be is in his presence, because in his presence, I've got joy and I've got strength, and I can get through any situation that I'm confronted with.
I love that, Jordan. uh, it's so beautiful, this picture of Habakkuk, right? Having a heavenly mindset about his situation. And you can look back and say, oh, I see how God was there all along. He was always with me, he was working. But especially for our listeners, because I know that in the midst of that, and I remember walking with you on that journey, which was a true privilege and something that brought us closer together as friends. But I remember there were many seasons where you couldn't even see the heavenly mindset, where you really couldn't even see that. And at those points is where we have to act even though we don't know. Like we have to keep moving, taking one step before the other. I have a whole chapter in my book that is about the journey being mysterious. And I talk about literally like driving through a fog. Sometimes we got to keep moving forward through that fog, knowing that God, like even Habakkuk's own words is like, I know that God is with me, even though I don't feel it. That song, right? Even though I don't see him at work, he's at work. I love that song. So good. Um, it's this picture of just, and that's what I saw you do. I saw you keep moving forward in so much pain and so much confusion and deep mourning for the many things that you were losing, right? The dreams that you had, the work that you were getting to do, the friendships that you built in Peru. You still have those friendships, but you were building them even deeper and further and wider. And knowing that that was changing, I remember how hard that was and how hard it was to even know like what's going to happen tomorrow. What's my journey going to be
It
like?
It kind of reminds me of like the saying, which is obviously like a standard worldly saying, has nothing to do with faith, but hindsight is 2020, except for like
Yeah.
also hindsight is like God's full view because he is living like in the now and in the future and in the past. Like he is able to see all things. That's why he's able to walk us through these journeys because he already knows where we're going and how we're going to get there, even as we have the free will to bump and bruise and turn left and fork right and like do all these things. He's still walking it with us and knows where we're ultimately going to end up. And he will guide us and walk with us when we are going our own way until we're ready to turn to him. And I think that it's just such a good reminder that there are wilderness seasons and they are painful, and in that wilderness, which we've all been in, every single one of us on this podcast today, and I'm sure most people listening, if they are
Yeah.
believers for any length, have gone through the wilderness, and it feels empty and painful. It feels like you're lost. It feels confusing. And sometimes too, God's answer is silence. Sometimes he is answering us in the silence. And it's an opportunity for us to refocus our mind on him and remember, like when you get out of it and you can look back and say, oh, yeah, he did all of this. He is always in it. No matter what we are going through, no matter what is happening, he is guiding us through. And it can be a helpful reminder of he is good always, even when it hurts.
I was reading Job today, and I mean, you got to read Job to see the stuff he tells God.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's pretty raw. It is so raw, and you just come and take me out. Take me out.
Right.
Right. And so sometimes it can feel like that. And
Yeah.
I remember how hard that was for you, Jordan. So that was quite the thing to walk with you.
If I could, again, I don't want to preach, but one of my favorite stories in the
Hey,
Bible.
you got a preacher,
One of
two
my what?
preachers, and a preacher to
Yeah.
be. This is going to
Yeah.
be one of those podcast people. Just accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
my favorite stories in the Bible is there's this meeting where Jesus is and he's in a home, right? Probably Peter's home and packed out, right? Like sold out tickets. Everybody's in the home. There's people out the door. I mean, this thing is just packed. And then stage left, there's this paralyzed guy, and happens to be there's another four guys that see this guy and like, all right, here's a problem. This guy can't walk on his own, and the solution is in that house, which is Jesus. And they pick this guy up and walk him over to the house. And when they get to the house, they're like, man, how are we going to get this guy in? Of course, we know the story. They get creative. They bring the guy up to the roof and they cut a hole in the roof and they lower the guy in front of Jesus. And I always make a joke, if you play poker, four of a kind always beat a full house. And so the one thing I love is that paralyzed guy who couldn't couldn't get to Jesus on his own. Maybe he heard Jesus was in town. Maybe he knew Jesus had the ability to heal him, but he couldn't get there on his own. He couldn't walk. He couldn't pick up his own weight. The weight of his problem or his condition was so heavy that this guy literally was stuck where he was because he had four friends. He had four friends that were willing to pick him up and walk him and get him to Jesus. And this is twofold. I want to be one of the friends for one of my friends that at times where their situation is so heavy they can't get to Jesus on their own, and I want to make sure I bend with my knees and pick them up, no matter how heavy, no matter how far the walk is, no matter how creative I got to get, no matter what roof I got to tear off and get that person to Jesus. I want to be that kind of friend for people. I also want to have people in my life like you and Jim and Ness, like I have so many great friends in my life that are there for me along this journey of faith, that there's moments, Pastor Jordan, like we're pastors, and there are moments in our lives where we cannot walk on our own. There's moments I feel like I cannot get to Jesus on my own. I
That's so
feel like
true.
everything is just so heavy, and whatever situation it is, and we deal with stuff all the time, week in and week out. And I thank God that I have friends in my life that are creative enough and strong enough and healthy enough to make sure that I get to Jesus when whether I can, sometimes don't want to, and I'm having a pity party and I'm off, shouting about woe is me, and I got some friends that say, "Nope, get up and grab me and get me to the roof, tear the roof off, get me in front of Jesus." And literally change my whole situation, where now I have not only a physical healing but a spiritual healing and a freedom, and I mean all these things that happen to that guy in that house happens to us when we get to Jesus. So when we go through these moments, man, I mean that's the one thing I deal with. A lot of people that either getting divorced or just lost a loved one. On Saturday, we had a friend that 10 minutes from my house, actually, a drunk driver hit this couple, beautiful couple, the 12 and 8-year-old daughters. Both, obviously, the parents died. Now we're walking through with this family through this. Like you're walking through these moments. They don't stop. They're constant. And
Yeah.
the one thing I could always say is, man, who are your friends? Who are those four of a kind? Who are those people that are healthier and stronger than you that are going to make sure you get to Jesus? I think that's why church is so important. That's why, small groups or whatever we call them, like being in ministry, serving in church, you're around people that you just do life with. And when you're down, they're like, "Hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you for a while." Or you send the text or send the email. And so it's twofold. I want people that are doing that for me, and I want to make sure that I'm a big list person. I've got tons of lists on my phone, and I have got a list of people that are in my life that do that for me, that I can count on.
Yeah.
that I can be honest with, that I can be transparent with, that when we FaceTime, somebody goes, hey, Jordan, your smile looks great, but how's your heart? Like,
Mm.
what's the root of that problem? Like, really, how are you? And I can be honest and transparent and say, you know what? I'm really going through this, and I'm dealing with this. I'm struggling with this. So it's crucial. When the famous saying. I mean, I'm probably gonna butcher it, but when we die, there's people that carry our casket.
Yes.
And I'm like, who's lifting me up when I'm alive? I don't want
Oh,
to wait
come
till I'm
on.
dead, right?
It's good.
I don't want to wait
Yeah.
till I'm
Yeah.
dead for those people to lift me up. Who's lifting me up now? That's what matters. Not when I'm.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm happy those people are going to lift me up when I pass. But who's now in my life that is lifting me up and carrying my weight? And so whenever we go through these valleys, these wilderness experiences, these storms, I mean hurricanes, tsunamis, it is vital and crucial that we have people in our lives that are going to do whatever it takes to get us to Jesus.
Yeah.
Amen. Oh,
I
that's
was
good.
thinking
Preach it,
about
Jordan.
yeah. I was actually just thinking about that, right? As you started to tell the story about the friends, and I was like, "Oh man, it makes me think of Job too."
Yeah,
Because if you think about it, Job was surrounded by three friends, and all of them were basically like, "You did something wrong. That's the
yeah,
only way this is going
yeah,
to happen." They were mean to him and rude to him, and ultimately were like, "Yeah, maybe you should. Maybe you should do
yeah,
that. Maybe you
yeah.
should go away. Like, obviously, you're the problem here." And so I think it's just really so like clear that we do need community, that we need people that are going to be with us through it, that the wilderness can feel less silent,
Yeah,
honestly. If we have
yeah.
people who
Yeah.
are saying, I don't know the answer, but I will walk with you through it and I will be here. I mean, I have some of my closest friends are people who have come to me and said, hey, I hear the Lord is telling me this for you. And I just want you to know that you're doing the right thing, you're going the right direction, or you need to turn. You need to do X, Y, or Z. Like God really has impressed this on my heart for you. And it's so helpful because we are going to fall short. And sometimes it feels like we may hear something and then it's like, but is that really what you had for me,
You
God?
have to
Like,
confirm
is
that.
that
Yeah.
really, so to have people in your life who are also confirming things for you or helping bring clarity is just so helpful and useful in that process.
And calling out our
Um,
nonsense too.
yeah,
You
Yeah.
know,
totally.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I think of a friend. This is funny, but you sit at dinner and you got a big green thing in your tooth,
Yeah.
and there's a friend that's going to say, "Hey, get
Yeah.
that out."
Yeah,
And there's other people,
totally.
because you're not that close and you don't want to embarrass the person, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You let them sit there and have a whole dinner and talk. Right? I want
Yeah.
the
And they
friend
get
that's going to be
home and
like,
they're like, oh, he
right.
Yeah.
said nothing.
I want the friend to say, "Hey, you got some stuff in your teeth." I want the friend to say,
Yeah.
"Hey, your attitude stinks. Hey,
Yeah.
you're thinking negative about this, or I don't like the way you whatever." I want those people in my life, and we can get defensive at first, but if you really trust those people, if you really say, "I'm inviting these people to speak into my life," and you trust them, then that's the best place to get. We're only going to get better. I want to be. I want to be better. When I said I'm a list guy, I'm also like I've got goals for my roles. And so when God, I feel like God's called me to be certain things on this earth. One of my number one things is dad. I've got three gorgeous daughters. How do I become a
You're in
better dad?
so much trouble. So much
Yeah, I
trouble.
know. I know.
How are you going
Yeah.
to protect those women? They're gorgeous.
But I say, how do I become a better dad? How do I become a better son? How do I become a better brother?
Yeah.
How do I become a better single man? How do I become a better
Yeah.
future husband? How do I become a better pastor? How do I become a better whatever it is? So I'm like, man, I want not only God, I want you to show me. I want you to reveal things to me. But I want people in my life that are like, hey, I saw this. And, whether it was on Instagram or in real life, I don't think that's the best route that you're supposed to go. And I want the honesty, I want the transparency, so that people can challenge me. So because I
Yes.
want to be better. Who wants to be the
Yeah.
same as yesterday? Who wants
Totally.
to be
That's right.
worse than
Right.
yesterday?
Yes,
Totally.
yes. Well,
Yeah.
so some people do live in some moment in the past, which I think it's a great transition for us because you mentioned you would be in Peru had you
Mm,
not gone through that divorce. So it's been how many years now that you are back in New York? Is it
13.
whoa.
Yeah.
Time flies. Goodness
Yeah.
Yeah.
gracious.
13
Okay.
years.
So what have you been doing in this season, and what are you doing now? Like, where did God take you out when you came out of that wilderness? Where's He taking you forward?
Yeah, so I mean, when I was in Peru, I mean, the ministry grew, and another larger humanitarian organization hired me and asked me to help them start offices all over Central and South America and the Caribbean, and then we started some projects in Africa and Asia. And I mean, it was nuts. It was uh, it, it it was nuts. And when the marriage broke up, and we moved back to New York, um, I felt like my focus had to be my three girls who were 9, 6, and 4 at the time. And I went into survival mode, not just for me, but for them.
Mm.
And so I couldn't travel like I was. I knew I needed to be there for my girls. So I quit all the offices in Central South America, and I kind of hunkered down in New York. We started something called the Legacy Center, which is a food pantry in New York for New York. And we feed the homeless, and we feed a couple thousand families every week, and it's awesome. I love it. It's externally it's a completely separate food pantry. Internally, it's kind of like the humanitarian arm of our local church, and then I started doing mission trips. We 1 week here. We literally just got back on Monday from Peru,
Mhm.
so that was great to be back and see everybody. So we do a trip a year to Peru. We do a trip a year to Eswatini, which is in southern Africa, which I started a project about 9 years ago, and it's kind of a feeding program. But we actually have a property. We have several people on staff, and it's incredible. So we take a trip there every year. We do an Israel trip, which my first time was with you guys. So we do an Israel tour every year, which I love leading. And then recently, I always wanted just missions. Like I'm the missions guy. And recently, my dad and my mom, who have pastored our church for 38 years now, um, they're older, and they're kind of looking to step aside. And there's a question, and talk about journey of faith. I never saw myself as a lead pastor. If you asked me a year ago, I would say no way, there's no chance, absolutely not. And I've kind of been doing the role for the past 8 months now. And I've been loving it. It's been a fantastic new journey of faith. um, Probably why I have so many sermons, because I've got to come up with all these sermons now. um, and they're all fresh in my mind because I preach,
Yeah.
every, not every week, but a lot more now. Um, but it's been a fun journey, and so I'm in a place where I want God's will, nothing more, nothing less. Um, and if it's for me and God, then I want God to make it clear. I literally am asking for like blood on the walls. Like, I want to exit a sign. God, make it real. Um, I don't want it to be a good idea. I don't want it to be uh, there's no one else. I don't want it to be, this feels good. This seems right. I want it to
Mm.
be so God. And if it is, then of course I'm in. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just saying yes. So I don't know what the next 5, 10 years look like right now. It is crazy, because I do have a lot of dreams and some crazy missions. I think that's going to actually help the church at large. Ideas, and I'm excited about them. And I do, no matter what, I still think I'm going to execute those. Um, but yeah, this whole lead pastor role is now uh, in the possible works here, and pray for your boy. I don't know, like,
Yes.
uh, this is a journey of faith right here. So,
Mm.
but again, these last 13 years has been amazing. It's been dad number one, dad role number one, taking care of my girls. Again, now they're 22, 19, and 17. One more, the last one, she's got one more year in high school. So like, I feel like I gave everything I could to that role. And of course, I'll always be dad, but they need to be less and less now. And now I'm going into this new role, and yeah, hey, I want to get married again. Now
Yeah.
what does that look like? I feel like I wasn't looking to get married before because I was taking care of the kids and making sure they were good. And now they're good, I feel. And I'm like, okay, let me start seeing what dating looks like. And in this role of, yeah, I'm a pastor and now dating, and that's kind of weird. And, how do you date a girl in the church? And that's a whole
Yeah.
podcast on its own.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
we could do a whole dating podcast.
Yeah.
Uh, but so I don't know. I don't know what, again, Kayleigh, you said it. It's taking that step by step, and just trusting God's got the next step, and just planting my foot firmly on the next one, believing God's got it, and then God's got the next one. And this is my favorite emoji when the guy's
Yeah.
like this. That's my favorite emoji. That's me all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yes. It's a little bit like a worship posture too.
it is. Yeah, I'm like,
Amen.
I don't
Yeah, I
know, God,
love
I
that.
trust you. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. I wish I knew, but I don't know.
Yeah, but it's
Okay.
got to get from here to here. Like, it's got to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
the full
Yeah.
extended.
Yeah.
That's true. It's
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 like
a
the
half
TV
posture.
holding position versus the hands up posture.
Wow.
I think it's so cool, Jordan. Thank you so much for telling your story and just sharing all the process that you're going on. I think what's beautiful and what I just, learned alongside with you is this reminder that sometimes our callings start when we are 17 or 5 or 55. And we don't know where that's going to take us, if that's going to be, the calling for the rest of our lives, if it's temporary and he's going to call us to something else. And you're really learning that and walking that. He called you into missions and he called you to Peru. And then he called you to come home back to New York and be a dad. And now he may be calling you into this new season. And what a blessing to just truly have that full hand open posture and learn to just trust him in the midst of each step, no matter what the next step brings you.
Yeah, and believe that whether you see it or not. The verse bothered me when I was going through my storm, but now that I guess, the dust has stopped hitting my eyes. That the verse that just God's working out all things for your good, and believing that
Mm.
even when it doesn't look good, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's our fault,
Yeah.
because it could be our fault sometimes. It's not always just something. It could be our fault. Yet if we love God and we give the situation to God, he is working behind the scenes. He's working all things out for our good. And I just have to trust that verse. And whether it's my children, he's working out all those things for their good. Whether it's for my ministry, whether it's for my future relationships, whether it's for my mental health, my financial health, my physical health, I'm trusting God. You're working out all these things for my good. And so I lean on that and walk day by day. And yeah.
I love that. Well, Jordan, we could be here talking so much more. I have so many questions and things that I would love for you to share with our audience, but I just pause it here and say thank you. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for the adventure that it is to watch you um, walk with Jesus and trust him with the ups and downs that you have lived and are probably obviously continuing to live. We don't know what tomorrow holds, right? And so just knowing like, okay, there's no better way to live. Like you made a choice. I'm going this way, and no matter what. And I love that, and I love you and your girls and your parents and your church. And yeah, so I will make sure that our folks can see all the ways in which they can connect with you on the show notes, because people, this is a friend you want to follow and be in contact with, and listen to his great sermons, which I'm sure are
Yes.
online, right? Are they online,
They
Jordan? Are
are
you
they
guys?
are
They're
online. They are.
okay. So you all have to listen to those great sermons. So thank you, Jordan. I love you
Hey,
so much.
can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Just like we're talking Job and we're talking Bible stories, I love what you and Kayleigh are doing here on the podcast and telling people stories. These are modern day Bible stories and what
Yeah,
people have gone through, and it just ignites faith in someone else.
I
And so
hope
if
so.
we could
Yes.
use our stories to help others, I think that's amazing. And so I just wanted to commend you and Kayleigh for stepping out in faith and this new journey and sharing your lives and being so transparent and sharing so many of people that you know, their lives and their stories, and just praying that it just keeps encouraging more and more people to keep walking forward on this journey of faith. So I love you
Amen.
guys.
Love you too.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to Uncharted Podcast with Inés Franklin. Learn more about Inés at unchartedpod.com. Follow Inés' journey on Instagram at Inés Franklin. Sign up for our email list to receive direct access to online experiences and more. Thanks for listening, and join us again next time.